Okay, first I'm gonna show you a really good kind of like a watercolor paper that you can buy in like A3 or A4, and it's this brand, Dollar Rooney, at least that's how I pronounce it. I got it in A3. I rarely use it. If you were here, I would have given it to you. Um, this here means that it's thicker. People call it heavier, so 250 grams. That's the weight. The weight is measured when you burn a kilogram of paper, and this is the ash left from it, or 169 pounds, I guess that's pounds. I get the A3 size because I have more room, and this is what it can be used for: pencil, watercolor, ink. That's pastel and charcoal. Acid free means that it won't yellow and it won't decay. For it could be like in a museum, for example, if you put it on your wall, like I put my paintings on my wall, it won't turn yellow because light actually damages everything. So if you are going to display something, you have to be very careful that it's acid free and that your paintings are light fast. This information, however, if you're just making cards, it's not going to be too relevant to you, to be honest. Now, second thing you need to know about is texture of the paper. If you're going to work with mixed media paper, it comes in like a rough texture. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's like quite rough. This is really good for like um, patterns or animals, like textures. If you want to paint plants, you have to find something that is quite smooth, so this won't do. So you have to have a professional or a cartridge paper that's quite smooth. I actually have that, but it's a professional grade. Or you can get a sketchbook, but that won't be very good with watercolor, but it can still work. I have this sketchbook that's quite smooth, like look here, this is not made for watercolor, but you can see the difference. It's quite smooth, so the paint will go easily on it, it will glide. While with texture like this, sorry, with texture like this, it's quite, you can create patterns here easily, which is really great depending on what effect you want from your paint. Now, in my opinion, any paint can work with you, so that's okay. But the brush in again is important, because if you have a bad brush, it won't hold water, and you ideally want a brush that's fluffy. I know you won't get any from animals. I use from animals, but if you do get synthetic, I can recommend this one, which I'm gonna work with that one now so I can show you that it can happen. This one is again the same brand. Okay, same brand, Aquafine, and I get number 10. The bigger the paper, the bigger brush you want. The smaller the paper, small brush. You can also get acrylic brushes if you have any. They can also work with watercolor since acrylic is water soluble. Or you can get student grade Da Vinci. These are quite nice. Anyway, so those are the brushes I use. This I'm gonna use right now because this was like £2. This was, I think this was on sale in Hobbycraft. This paper was maybe £8, and it has 30 sheets and you can cut them up. I've cut them up before. I've made really amazing stuff with it. This, I think this is from that paper, but I'm not sure. But it's a similar texture. As you see, there's a lot of texture here. Yeah, so I'm just gonna put that away. Again, with paints, you don't really need to worry that much. You can get student grade paints that are really cheap, um, and you can make it work with you for you. Now, what you need to do if you want to work, and like if you've, let's say you've learned your color theory, you know it when you were like young, you know what to do. This is my water, by the way. So I wet my brush. How to hold the brush now. Watercolor brushes usually have really, the round ones are the ones I recommend actually, because the round ones come to a point like this. Not sure if you can see that. So it comes to a point, so you can make fine detail with the point. So I'm gonna show you now. You can make fine detail with the point like this, or because it's a round brush, again, I'm gonna put the water here so you can see each time I grab the water. So I'm taking paint right now. So this is how it is, or you can make thick strokes like that. Watercolor is actually one of the most difficult mediums out of all paints, because it has, I would say, a mind on its own. For example, if you decide to paint and let's say you use markers and you know that you put the color down and that's where the color stays. With watercolor, it's completely different because it activates with the water. So if you put, now what I've just done, I've put the brush in and I've placed it like that and the water runs. If I take a little bit more color and I bop it here, the color will run, right? So it has a mind on its own. Your brush, and while I want to talk about brushes like you asked me to, your brush controls it. So what I really love about watercolor and why it's so much fun to me is that it actually is, even though it's very, very difficult to control it, your brush allows you to control it. And there was this movie when I was very, very young, like a Barbie princess, like whatever, the Princess Rapunzel that had this brush and she was painting like this all the time. And that's the first time I actually started like using the brush and getting my hand to kind of move around with the brush. So what I really like about the brush is that, again, I'm gonna dip in the water. I'm gonna show you here. So when I dip in the water, I use it like this to get the excess water out, and then I would make it to a point. When I use the brush, if I'm going to cover a lot of space with the paint, I will hold it at the large end. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little bit of paint now. I'm gonna put it in the camera so you can see. Oh my god, oh my god. Right, so this is my paints. Okay, so get some water, put it on the side. I'm gonna put the water away. If right now I want to cover all of this area in color, I'm going to take, this is already pre-mixed color with water, by the way. I'm going to take this color, load my brush on, right? And if I hold it here, like I'm holding a pen or a pencil, this is how you hold it to write, right? So there is your letter, there is my letter, so you're writing, right? So this is used nicely for fine detail, let's say a flower or dots like this. This is like what you do in like kindergarten. If you want to, however, make deep, lots of like expressive, they call it expressive marks, you're going to have a paint, hold it in the end, and just loosely move like this, right? Then you can get extra water, get more paint, and move. Now, this is very easy, very quick. This will dry and you can paint on top of it. Let's say this is your background. And you just move like that. If you want to make finer detail, smaller detail, then you would take the brush, take paint again, hold it closely as like a pencil. So you want to write, I'm gonna write my name. Yeah? If you want to do it like that, then like this. Boop, gone. Now, the pressure is very, 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 very important when you are holding a brush. So I'm gonna wash my color again, putting a little bit of the excess out. I'm going to take a little bit of paint. I like my pink, so I'm gonna take a little bit of pink in my palette here. Now, if I let's say this was a loose background work. Let's say I want to do detailed work. Just like you do when you paint with markers or when you color with color pencil when you were younger, the more pressure you put, the larger the stroke would be. So you can use the pressure to make marks. It's similar, very similar to calligraphy. So let's say you want to paint a simple shape. So I have a lot of water, I have enough pigment. So this is all water and pigment right here. So let's say I want to make a simple leaf shape. I would put the brush down, I would press on it. The moment I press on, this right here expands a little. Then I would pull it down, press, 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 press. And as I'm coming back to the end of the leaf, I would pull back like that. So what this did here, it created a curve. So you don't actually need to make a curve like this when you're painting. You don't need to use it as a pencil. You can use it a little bit further or a little bit closer, whatever you decide. You can use it and press down and pull down while you're pressing. As you're exiting and curving, you can pull back, and that creates the shape. This can be used as a leaf, can be used as a petal. Now let's say you want to complete the leaf. You will start back from the top. Press, 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 and release. Then let's say you don't like that, you're going to maybe connect it like this. And then all that's left to do is to connect here. You can also push the pigment around. Now you might see that here I have a lot of pigment, here is very translucent. You can push it around, because watercolor would only go when the water is. This technique now is called wet on dry, because your paper is dry, you're using a wet brush. If you, however, want to do something different, I'm going to put this brush down. Lots of artists like to use the brush, water the brush, get excess water out, but make sure that this has plenty of water in it. And I'm gonna do it on here. Put a lot of water on the paper first. I'm gonna dip the brush in the water again and put more water in. So there's a lot of water on this brush right now. A lot of water. Putting my brush away. This is my brush with the pigment. This brush is already wet. I'm wetting it again. I'm getting more watercolor, more pigment, so there's a lot of color on here right now, and water. This is already wet as well. What I'm going to do now is just drop the color. And what happens, immediately you see it, it creates shapes, different shapes. So you see it clearly, I'm gonna show you, it clearly, it completely evaporates. This in itself, this is a shape. And you can use your imagination. To me, that looks like kind of like a underwater animal, whatever. Then I would put a dot. Do you see? Immediately. Because the paper was already wet. If, however, I use it on a dry, like right here, and I put a dot, it won't do that. It would only do it where the water is. So what you can do with this technique is endless. What I can show you now is actually quite fun thing, how to paint leaves or flowers. So I am emptying this. Okay, so let's say I want to create a shape of a leaf again. I am putting, this is like clean brush. Press, pull. Yeah, sorry, hope you see that. then press, pull. So all of that is water, yeah? All of that is water. Now I want to drop, so this is I use the same technique as I use here, but just with water. Now, watercolor would only go where water is. So it won't bleed out of this shape if I put color on it now. So let's say I want to choose two different colors, but they're quite good together. Or you can see maybe with blue and yellow. So I put a little bit of blue. I'll drop a dot of blue here on the top, and it would immediately start running down. You suggest for the color to run down, right? I'll wash my brush. Please don't look at my mess. Then I would put extra yellow here, and I would put it on the other side. Boop. Okay, that yellow was not very good. Let me try again. Boop. And you see, it only goes where the water is. It won't bleed out. So I can take a little bit more of this and mix them together on the leaf. Like this. So when this dries, it will create this really fun effect. Okay, I'm gonna start from the beginning again so you can understand. Holding your brush at the end of the brush for expressive, loose. They're like very like, oh, abstract painting, blah, blah, blah. Holding your brush in the middle again, more easy flow of the wrist, like pretend you're Barbie, blah, blah, blah. Holding it very closely for fine detail. What you can do with fine detail is really, really cool. Let's say on this petal right here that we've made earlier, you can take the same color, but maybe instead of putting so much water, just put it on the tip of the brush like this. Can you see? Not sure if you can see. 1 second. Anyway, this is the tip of the brush. This is your petal, and let's say you hold it very closely like this, and you want to make patterns or this like a normal, let's say like a leaf. So you would start like this, and you can go like this. After this is dry, because there's no water here, we're working wet on dry again, so the color won't bleed out. See, it doesn't bleed out. So I make shape here, it doesn't go anywhere else. I make shape here, it goes everywhere else. You see how it disperses, it goes. So it's important when you're making details to not do it on wet paper unless you want to make those details very loose, very expressive like this. Because this is dry now, I can make fine detail like this. Oops, a little bit out of the lines, so it won't bleed out. You see? How that lady did it in the first one, the first example of the flower that she made, was quite easy. She made a dot because the brush was holding quite closely. Then she used pressure to make those leaves. You see? This is this shows you very well. You press, you curve, you loose back. You press, you curve, you loose back. Very good exercise. Very, very good. Let me show you again. You can do it closer, you can do it further when you're holding the brush. I prefer to hold it kind of like middle ground when I do this. I press, I curve, press, curve, and release. So it's like you press, you curve, as you curve, you release. Just try that and see what you think. Try this exercise as well. Try this exercise where you put water down, then you put the pigment down. Try this exercise, you put water down and you water is everything and you just disperse it like woo, wee, 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 wee. Try a wash. Try holding your brush this way. Try holding your brush in the middle. This again, this is my favorite. It allows you to just move it around. Try holding your brush very closely if you want to do finer detail. Examples. This right here, this was made very, very loosely because there is washes everywhere, disperses. It also is made very detailed on the eyes. This, however, almost everywhere was made detailed. Very loose, very detailed. One last thing I want to show you before I end the video. You clean your brush, sorry. Let's say you have a lot of water on here. A good effect, this, let's say it's almost dried. Put a little bit of water and just let it dry like that, and you will create a pattern after. Really nice pattern. So I think this is the first tutorial. The brush, again, I use this one because you don't need too many brushes. A brush like that goes to a good point can make very small paintings or very large paintings. Anything, like literally anything. And it's synthetic from what I remember. It's really, really good brush. It has a good spring to it, so you can move it around. Most brushes that are synthetic don't have good spring to it, but this one does. So you can make that. Paper, again, it's important because the different texture allow you different details. Yeah, okay, bye.